Please welcome to the stage the wonderful Mr. Russell Creemer.
It's good to be back. It was last Tuesday. I was having a chat with the carrier bag in my house, as you do. I didn't realise they have a hierarchy. Did you know that? They aspire to be more than just a carrier bag, and as you all know, underneath your sink, you have a carrier bag that holds carrier bags, so that's known as a carrier bag bag. That's the first step they go down. And then you're happy with that, you put in more carrier bags in the carrier bag bag, and then you get a slightly better carrier bag. Perhaps you're in Sainsbury's one day. So that new bag becomes the carrier bag bag. Because obviously you put the carrier bag bag with the carrier bags into the carrier bag bag. Now this can go on for quite some time, as I'm sure you can imagine. I went to Marks and Spencer, got a new carrier bag, that became the carrier bag, and the carrier bag went into the carrier bag, and into that. It was just last year that I got a bag for life and fucked it all up for all of it. I was quite confused about this last Thursday, so I went to America because they use paper bags. And I had a little chat with this paper bag there, and it was just a little paper bag, and he was sad. So, well, why are you sad? He said, I've got HIV. What do you mean you got HIV? Just a little paper bag. Have you been to the doctor? He said, yeah, I went to the doctor a few times. The first time I went there, he asked me whether I was a gay paper bag. You know. He said, no, I'm just a little paper bag. How else could you have got HIV? Perhaps you had a blood transfusion. No, I haven't had a blood transfusion, I'm just a little paper bag. Perhaps you've been injected in drugs. No, I'm just a little paper bag. So the doctor tapped on Google, and he looked back at the little paper bag and he said, I found out what's wrong. And you can all see it's coming, can't you? No? Well, it turned out his parents were carriers. Anyone here bullied at school? I used to go in every day. This kid used to go, oi, fatso, barrel boy, fat cunt. He was really, really rude. I got really upset by it, and I went home and I spoke to my mum about it, and she said, you just got to stand up to him. So the next day I went to school and I did. I stood up to him, and sure enough, I went to school and he was going, oi, fatso, fat boy. And I went right up to him and I tipped him out of the wheelchair into the school pond. He died. After that murder in school, I made it to university. It was quite tragic, but you know when you first go to university, you go out on Freshers Week and you meet a girl, they're called cougars, they're much older, they made me. So I met this cougar, and she invited me back to her house, and we started having sex. And sure enough, the sun came in mid-act, which was really embarrassing. But it worked out well, because he gave me a lift to college the next day. So I realised that wasn't going to work, so I met this other girl in university. She was a tennis player, a lovely girl. I took her out for a date, I took her to a restaurant. She gave me a couple of compliments. Some of them I would have said were a little bit backhanded, but we had a nice time. We dated a bit more. I go over to her house. She'd come over to my house. I'd go over to her house. She'd go over to my house. I'd go over to her house. She'd go over to my house. I'd go over to her house. A friend of mine said we were courting. And it was going well. I really fell for her, and I wanted to say how I felt about her. So that night I went to her house and I spoke to her, and I told her how I felt about her. I told her exactly where I wanted to be with her, and she looked at me with absolute disdain and dumped me there on the spot. So a little warning to you all that going out with tennis players is risky because love means nothing to them. So the next day I went to her house and I tipped her out of a wheelchair. Which is good because it was leaving horrible lines on my lawn. I used to work in a bar like this, Hi bar people. Do you know when you got a horrible customer? I had one, this guy, he was about 4 foot tall, his name was, I called him Asda Dave, everyone called him Asda Dave. Why? Because as he came in his green Asda uniform, with a badge that said, "Hi, I'm Dave, how can I help?" Now, he was an obnoxious little shit, a cantankerous cunt. He was about 4 foot tall, and he just used to annoy everyone. And then I came up with the best joke I have ever written, and probably the best joke ever written by any man. I said to Asda Dave, wouldn't it be funny if you got fired? And had to get a job in Lidl's. Because then everyone could call you Little Dave. And he looked at me, again, with disdain, and went, no, the pension scheme's not as good. It was that same bar that I met this girl, had a wonderful night. We were watching some football, it went well, and she invited me back to her house. And she let me up into her bedroom. It was all very exciting. We'd only spent a few hours together, I'm sure you can imagine. And then she sat me on the bed and said, "I'm going to get into something more comfortable." And as she left the room, she turned the light on. And there were teddy bears everywhere. All looking at me with their little teddy bear eyes. There were big ones, smaller ones, all just staring at me. But then she came in this thing that she told me was a negligee. I don't know what negligees were, but I quite like them. But then we moved on to have a wonderful night of sex. I was, don't get me wrong, but I was amazing. we went on. I was so confident that the next morning I said, "How was that for you?" So it was all right. You can take any prize from the bottom shelf. I married her. She's sitting over there. I haven't said hello again. We got married a few years ago. We decided that I would organise the whole wedding, which I did. It was amazing. I would organise all the honeymoon apart from one thing. The one thing I didn't organise was the first hotel we were to stay in when we got to where we were going, which I haven't told you where we were going. So we decided we would go to Seychelles, New York, Vegas. Now we decided to go backpacking in Vietnam during the rainy season. So we got to Saigon and we got to the hotel after a 16 hours flight. I was, this is it. This is what we dream of, the first night of the honeymoon. So we got to check in. And the guy in the desk said, "Mr. Creemer, is this my surname? Mr. Creemer, I have a room booked for you, a twin room on the 7th floor. What do you mean the twin room? It's our honeymoon. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as I looked to my wife, but the only thing she had to organise for our whole honeymoon was that room that night. So it turned out, as it was a twin room, that the only warm, moist, smelly, sexy tunnel that I had any fun in was one that was built by the Viet Cong in late 1968. And true to form, I had to pull out of that after about 30 seconds as well. Thank you very much for having me again, doing most of the same jokes that I've done again. Thank you, Owen, again for having me. I'll probably see you all in 2 months when I come and join the lights and someone calls out again. Thank you very much.